Melee is a hard game. It has a reputation for being high APM, difficult execution, and almost an infinite skill ceiling. And all of this is true. Melee is famous for its high actions per minute. Actions per minute can range in the 6, 7, and even 800s, and select sequences will have players inputting over 10 inputs a second. That level of difficulty speaks for itself. Melee also came out in 2001, the dreadful pre-buffer era of games, meaning that, in Melee, a one-frame link, of which there are many in the regular course of play, actually requires a perfect 1/60th of a second timing, compared to modern fighting games that have reasonable to completely insane 30-frame input buffers. Like, yeah, still can't believe this went to launch. What if I told you that Melee has a unique issue that other fighting game players, and really players of most other games, do not have to contend with? Melee has a bad negative feedback loop. And when I say negative feedback loop, I don't mean in the strictly scientific sense. I think the best way to explain what I mean by a negative feedback loop would be giving you an example of what I consider to be a positive feedback loop. Let's take Street Fighter 6 for example. And while I do consider myself to be an expert on all things Melee, I am wading a bit into the dark here, but I have consulted some of my friends who know a lot more about fighting games, so none of these takes should be drastically criminal. So let's take, for example, Cammy's medium kick. A great neutral poking tool. Here's what's cool about this move. This move is -4 on block, meaning that when it's blocked, the opponent can act 4 frames earlier than the attacker can. What this means in effect is that at certain spacings it can be punished and at other spacings it cannot. And here, let me not try to explain that to you. Here's Punk expanding and giving great examples.
Drive rush jab, and then instead of going into a normal button or a grab, I go into my standing medium kick, which creates a trap that can make your opponent whiff a button because they know that your button is minus. You see, this button is -4, but since the pushback on it is creating a spacing trap, which can make your opponent whiff a button because they think they're in range to take their turn back, which they are not in range. It is, of course, their turn, but they're not in range to do the button that they think they are in range to do. So then you can just start to wait and just react.
You know what else is funny about this move? Whether or not a pro player is using it correctly or I'm accidentally spamming it as I mash my fight stick, it's still gonna be -4. And that's not just exclusive to this move. All grounded moves are going to have the same property, which means that a new Street Fighter player will learn very early when they can mash and when they will get absolutely owned for mashing. This is what I mean by a positive feedback loop. Yes, a pro Street Fighter player is going to space better, react faster, and overall have much better control of their character, but at the end of the day, if they misspace a move, it's going to be exactly the same punish as it was versus the O2 scrub at your local who also misspaced that move. Now you may be thinking, Adust, the same is true for Melee. If me and you both use Marth F Smash, it's going to be -25 on block, whether or not it's a genius callout or a random mash. And this is absolutely true, but here's the catch. In Street Fighter, neutral is mostly played on the ground, and when a character jumps, the opponent, at a minimum, will always be able to react and block the jumping attack from a neutral state. In Melee, there are tons of moves, like Fox's Nair, that are totally unreactable, meaning that he can go from a grounded state to hitting you with a Nair before you even realize he's jumped. Aerials in Melee are also usually the best tools to create pressure, start combos, play defense, and so on and so forth. It's called a platform fighter for a reason. Well, what's the effect of this? Jumping in neutral is king in Melee, and a character rarely plays a totally grounded game, and that is the reason why a character who does, like Samus, is frequently compared to a more traditional 2D fighter character, jumping on occasion and even having her own scuffed version of a DP, but choosing to mainly play from the ground with grounded moves. Okay, that's all fine and great, but how does this affect Melee? Well, let's take one of my favorite characters, Captain Falcon, for example. This guy is really good, but he also has very few viable grounded options. Outside of grab and gentleman, Falcon is going to be looking to jump at you and use his insanely powerful aerial attacks. One of the most infamous moves in Melee is Knee, and even casual fans of Smash are very familiar with it. Knee is a great tool to start, end, or even chain itself into over and over for powerful combos, making it a favorite move for Falcon players to use in neutral. Luckily, an opponent can react to a knee, which is very helpful. They are able to throw up their shield before it hits, and many Smash players will learn early in their journey that they can just shield grab Falcon's knee once it hits their shield. Or so they may have thought. It is true that versus most Falcon players, you will be able to shield grab knee, leading to your own powerful punish. But a low, fast-fall knee can actually be safe enough to allow the Falcon player to dash away before the grab can catch them. Well, that's all well and good. Now that the player knows about this and will simply refrain from missing shield grab, maybe they'll hold shield, or maybe they'll roll away, or even wave dash back once Falcon has backed off in order to bait the shield grab. Except wait, that's not all. The lowest possible knee, with a perfect fastfall, is actually one of the few moves in Melee that is plus on block. +1 to be exact, meaning that if a very skilled Falcon player does the best possible knee on your shield, you're actually in danger of getting grabbed and his grab will now beat your shield grab. The issue though, so few Falcon players are doing this type of knee. Just work with me here. The average Falcon on Unranked, let's say 80% of Falcon players in the world, they're gonna get shield grabbed. And then we have another 15% of these Falcon players. They're low regional PR, your platinum and diamond ranked players on Slippy. These guys are doing safe knees. And then the cream of the crop, I'll say 5%, but I believe it's gonna be less than that, are doing perfectly safe knees. +1 on block almost every single time. And this phenomenon is not remotely exclusive to Falcon. Fox Drill, Falco Down Air, Marth Fair, Chic Bear, even Peach, who has float cancel, which makes all her moves +1 on shield, has a high level technique called subfloat, which allows a nair that would normally be +1 to now be +4. Realistically, there are probably less than 50 Peach players in the whole world who are regularly doing subfloat nair on shield, meaning that the average Fox player will really struggle to adjust to this high level of counterplay. Moreover, Melee is a game of habitually trained reactions. It's not like chess where you're reacting actively to your opponent's moves. You have pre-planned subconscious counterplay that you cannot adjust on the fly. There's no way that within a single set, any Fox player is going to be able to kill their muscle memory to shine nair out of shield to then respect it. You're going to have to learn this over a long course of time. And if you happen to be playing a lot in bracket, well, you might just lose. And this pattern of having to break down old habits that were, at least at the time, not even bad habits because they were the correct response to the set of options that your opponent had available, is what plays into this very difficult negative feedback loop for Melee. There is no discernible visual difference between a knee that is +1 and a knee that is +0, especially in real time, but the gameplay implications could not be more consequential.
Aw, dang it.
It means that, at the top level in Melee, the proverbial medium kick that has been -4 the entire time you've been playing, it's now -2. And the only reason that you know that is because you have personal knowledge that the person you're playing can do this -2 kick, or you learned by losing the mix enough times to rewire your brain. And at that point, you've probably already lost the set. But yeah, I've had this idea about Melee's unique negative feedback loop due to its incredibly high execution ceiling for a really long time. I understand that there's going to be some overlap here with other games, but I really wanted to zero in on the fact that, there might be like really 25 Peach players in the whole world that can do that +4 nair on your shield, and it's so hard to learn in Melee without losing over and over again. And now I'm kind of rambling, and anyway, I hope you liked the video, and if you did, please sub, please drop a like, and please check out my Patreon. It makes it way easier to make these videos, and thanks. And finally, shout out to my patrons, Mason, Zachary, and Cypher. Y'all's support is incredibly appreciated.